Hi, welcome to Mama Mandala, where magic is somatic. I'm Hagar. It's a full moon in Libra, and I'm so grateful to have this moment with you to explore a little bit of this archetype that invites us to cultivate, to create, to bring forth from within us beauty into the world. And in a time like now, when the order of the world as we've known it has been crumbling, and at the same time that this great collapse is happening, there's this tighter hold of authoritarian regimes, not just here in the US but in other places too. It's things are becoming tighter and more chaotic at the same time. And when we feel the disarray, the disorder, the threat to our well being, the threat to the well being of so many, it's harder to focus on making life meaningful. And yet, making life meaningful is always important, and making life meaningful and making little moments count and making beautiful expressions and friendships and spaces, making beauty in our lives becomes that much more of a deep and important goal and intention and an orientation, if that makes sense. So we can reorient ourselves around beauty. And it's not in a way of bypass. Okay, let's make that very, very clear. The invitation, even though part in some way, not 100% in a clear way, but in kind of like a behind the scenes, in the shadow. One of the shadows of Libra would be to bypass the struggle with this grand desire to make beauty, to sort of gloss over the intensity in order to bring forth and manifest harmony. Because this archetype is the part of us that just wants things to be harmonious and feel good and have this presence in our lives of deliciousness. It's ruled by the planet Venus. So there's this desire and commitment to beauty and even luxury, not as much as Taurus with this earthy, pleasure filled archetype that's gonna come to us in the next season, or right now in the season of Aries. So when the moon is full in Libra, it always happens in the season of Aries, because Aries, when the sun is in Aries, the fullness of the moon is going to be in Libra, because they're on the opposite sides of the spoke of the wheel of astrology. And Aries, this is beautiful. Aries is this new, fresh, renewed, rebirthing energy. It's the energy of spring. The season of Aries begins with the spring equinox. So a couple of weeks ago almost, it began with this great triumphant kind of a song of emerging from the earth. And spring brings with it so much beauty. And it's interesting because it's ruled by the planet Mars. So it's got this feisty kind of an energy. It's a spark. It's again, the spark of renewal. Sounds very, very refreshing to us, but it's also again a feisty kind of an energy. It's the ram, right? So it has horns that push against boundaries and pushes against things that hold us back. Think about the plants emerging from the earth. Every blade of grass needs to fight its way through the hard boundary of the soil and break through to reach for the sun, to reach for light, to grow into expression. So the mirroring and almost like it's not exactly completing, because there's never a completeness and a complete archetypal journey would be the entire zodiac wheel. But there's something about the energy of Libra and the energy of Aries that bring us into a more whole, a fuller picture. I'm using words that I'm not a big fan of for this particular purpose, but those are the ones that are coming. I'm just going to trust that you get the idea that they mirror each other and they have each other's shadow and light play. So Libra does not want to have any conflict, right? There's this resistance to having any fight, and at the same time, it's this part of us that wants balance, that wants equality, that wants beauty, and those are things in life that we sometimes actually have to struggle for a little bit. We have to stress the vine. We have to push against the things that maybe suffocate our possibilities of bringing beauty from inside and creating meaning in our lives, and working toward equality in society, right? So if we want equality, that's the Libra part of us, we're going to have to sometimes pick up the bow and have a little bit of a struggle and a fight and a striving for it that the energy of Aries bring for us from inside of us, right? Aries has to push against things in order to emerge, in order to spark, in order to bring renewal, in order to fill the world with the blossoming of flowers. It's literally fighting for beauty. And Libra arrives, so the season of Libra is in the fall, right? It arrives with the autumn equinox. And it actually marks the midpoint of the wheel of the journey on the wheel of the zodiac. So Aries begins it, and Libra marks the middle of the journey. And they bring with them, they bring through us this energy of maturity. There's this maturation that happens in the fall, right? When fall equinox hits, that is actually the second harvest holiday if you look at the Celtic wheel of the year. So the fall equinox is a harvest holiday. It's when we gather what has grown, and there's this abundance all around us. But at the same time, as we're gathering the abundance, we know that we're moving. Everything has matured and ripened, and now we're picking it, and now we're going to have to pick it and prepare for the season when maturation moves from peak from the peak of the results, if you will, of fertility, and into the time when things start to literally fall, right, and decay and break down. So when Libra arrives as a full moon, it arrives to remind us that the blossoms of this moment in Aries season are two things: nourished by the previous the previous seasons of decay and composting, and then the germination and incubation of winter. So everything that has fallen past the season of Libra and broke down and composted and nourished the soil gives us this moment of the arrival of flowers and insects and this beautiful dance of fertility and pollination and the animals waking up from hibernation and coming out, and mating season begins. So it's this beautiful time of aliveness. And there's also, if you think about the ram and the horns, it's also a time when okay, we'll take that, we'll take nature as is and not try to humanize it so much. But this is the time when some of the male animals, particularly the ones with horns and with antlers, are going to battle one another for the feminine, for the female, right? So there is this battling kind of an energy that comes with the time of fertility and blossoming, because life is not just one thing. Nothing in life is just one thing. Every flavor holds in it other accents, other scents, other aspects, other things that live inside of it and make it. Everything is making everything else. And in a way, this might be one of Libra's greatest powers, because Libra's energy of balancing, energy that wants to see everything from as many perspectives as possible. The element of Libra is the element of air. So air's ability to travel through and see things from as many angles as possible is very much alive in Libra. And air as a connector, as this thing that connects between things, is very much alive in Libra, because Libra is this relationship and partnership and connection archetype. And so with its capacity, with the capacity of this part in ourselves to look around and to look through the lens of to look through as many lenses as we can, to look through as many perspectives as we can, gives us this ability to see that there's nuance, to see that things are not just one thing, to see that when we look at spring, there's the beauty, that the glory, the just like deliciousness that comes with it, and that it comes with other energies in it, that it comes not with other, it comes with an energy of ferocity and intensity that we tend to associate with, let's say, winter, right? So there's this beautiful invitation in Libra to hear as many voices, because how else are you going to put things on the scale and really weigh them? Libra loves weighing the options, with the shadow of not being able to make a decision, right? So when we tap into this part in ourselves, we want to make sure that we weigh the options, that we look at things from different angles, that we hear as many voices as we can, that we bring into the picture as many pieces as we can gather, and include in or weave into that archetype, the archetype of Aries, for example, that is on the opposite side, which is very like makes decisions with an impulse, right? Which has its own shadow. That's why we want to be able to bring them into relationship, and not so much into balance, because there's never going to be balance. And this is one of the lessons that the Libra archetype inside of us has to learn over and over again. It's never going to be, things are never going to be in balance, but we're going to learn to balance on the surfboard that rides the waves that ebb and flow in life, right? It's not that we're going to balance and quiet the waves. It's that we're going to learn to balance ourselves on this ever moving, ebbing and flowing, phasing in and out between darkness and light kind of a journey, right? So it's not that we're not going to fall, but it's that we know how to pick ourselves up. It's not that we're not going to be placed on the scales of Libra and be too heavy on one side or too light on another. We're going to have experiences that take us off balance. The point is not to stay always balanced. The point is to be able to integrate all the different experiences, all the different parts, all the different views, all the different voices, bring them together, weave them together, find a place in us for all the different aspects of life and of the experiences of life and of ourselves. And I find, maybe this will move you in this way too, that in a time like now, having a season or a moment or or just like even a full moon with this kind of energy, with this kind of reminder, can be very helpful. Oh yeah, the point is not to always be in balance. The point is to be able to still stand up, to weave together all the different aspects, right? So that I find that to be really helpful. This full moon is also, I'm thinking about so many things at once, but this full moon is also the eve of Passover. So happy Passover, if you're celebrating. Happy is a very interesting word. That's why I rolled my eyes. I'm not a big fan of saying happy something, because I feel like have a meaningful Passover, and especially now, today, with war going on, this is like happy is things are more complex than that. And there's a paradox, so we can be happy, we can have a happy holiday, but also remember different aspects and parts of life that are going on. And again, like we started this conversation, not bypass, but weave together, integrate. The thing that's really striking for me right now, I spoke to a client friend yesterday about this in our session together, that in the Seder, in the Haggadah, in Passover, in the eve of Passover, in that great feast, there's a moment where, in the story of Passover, there's a moment where if you don't know, in a nutshell, the Israelites are trying to get out of slavery in Egypt, and they're done with being slaves, and they're trying to release themselves and get themselves out, and the Pharaoh doesn't let them, and they sing to the Pharaoh, "Let my people go," and it wants to let them go, but then it doesn't let them go, and he keeps sending soldiers on them to bring them back. And the character of God in this story is on the side of the Israelites, and he wants them to be free. And so he wants to help them, and he sends these plagues on the Egyptian. And gets worse and worse. And there's 10 plagues that he sends on the Egyptian people. And the people of Egypt are asking the Pharaoh to let the Israelites go. And the Pharaoh decides to let them go, and then decides not to let them go. And so God in this story sends another plague. And there's 10 of them. And in the Seder, and this is actually just to kind of like complete it for a quick second, the reason why it's called Passover is because the last plague is a horrible plague, and it's basically, God says that every firstborn son in every Egyptian family is going to die, and he wants to make sure that he passes over the Jewish homes, that they were not called Jewish back then yet, the Israelites' homes. He wants to not kill the firstborn sons of the Israelites. He only wants to do that to the Egyptians. This story, like we can have a much wider, greater discussion about a lot of different parts of it. I'm just telling you just like a little piece in a nutshell. And so it's called a Passover because there's a mark on the door of every Israelite, so that God knows to pass over those homes and not get the Israelites. But the real point that I wanted to make, that what I spoke with my dear client friend yesterday about, is there's a wine glass in the Passover, in the Seder meal. And I swear this is going to relate and connect us back to Libra, that you're supposed to, in the ritual of the meal, every plague that you call out, you take a little bit of the wine in your finger out of your glass and spray it out with every time you call one of the 10 plagues. And so the reason why that is, that's what my dear client told me yesterday, is because you're not supposed to be happy and celebrate the pain of even your greatest enemy. So in the Jewish tradition, it's important to remember that no matter how much harm the other has caused you, you're not supposed to celebrate their pain. This is striking very deep and very strongly for me on a very personal level. I will share with you that I was born and raised in Israel, and my family is still there. Please don't hate me. This is complicated, right? It's complex. This is the key. If there's any key that I want us to take from this, is the complexity of it. But I'm against the government there, so 100%. And this reminder of the Jewish, I'm not Jewish in faith, I'm Jewish in ethnicity. I don't believe in it, I'm not religious. But that the tradition I come from reminds us to take out of the glass of our ecstasy, of our drunkenness, of our joy, of our I'll bring another culture into this, of the Greek Dionysus, the full ecstatic celebration of life kind of an energy in the wine glass. We're taking out of our joy every time we call out our process of triumph, because we've caused, even those who have caused us harm, we caused them harm. So we're taken out of our joy because of that. I think that that's so powerful and so meaningful and hard to live by. On, like, if we'll take it to like the politics of it, and the people in that region, the sides hate each other so much, and those are people on both sides, and both forget each other's humanity. And the more that we forget another's humanity, the more our humanity becomes distorted, and the conflict in that is deep. And Libra wants to take us away from conflict, but we're in Aries season, and I think talking about it, thinking about it, contemplating it, struggling with it, grappling with it is important. Not to find answers, not to say who's right, not to say who's wrong. Everybody's right and everybody's wrong. To grapple with that, with the paradox, with the complexity of it. And to do that in a way that weaves us into deeper meaning. How do we do that? How do we do that in a world like the world that we live in right now? This is something light and fluffy, for the full moon. I'm thinking of, since Egypt came up, I'm thinking of the goddess Maat. And the goddess Maat is a goddess that very much is aligned with Libra. She was the goddess in Egyptian in astrology as it comes to us through Egypt. That's the goddess of this archetype. She holds the scales, and she has this feather that she places on one side of the scale. And when a person arrives at their death, there's this ceremony, and their heart, which represents that which holds all the deeds in their lives, is placed on the other side. And if the heart is as light or lighter than the feather, then they go to the joyful afterlife. But if it isn't, the heart falls into the jaws of Maat's alligator that opens. Crocodile. Is it alligator or crocodile? Wow, I feel so. I'm so sorry. I feel very disrespectful right now because I'm telling the story of a different tradition, and I'm having like a moment of forgetting. But one of those two, I always get confused about them, which is which. And so they open their mouth and they eat the heart, and it makes me think of how different traditions, especially since I brought up Israel and I brought up and with a war going on right now. One side thinks that they are right, that they are the ones with the heart that is light, that their faith, that their beliefs, that their God, that their way is the right way, and everyone's wrong. And if you placed your heart in the scale of another tradition, from their perspective, your heart would be heavy. And if someone from a different tradition placed their heart on the scales of your tradition, their heart will be heavy. And what is right and wrong is so distorted when it comes to religion. That's sort of the thing that I'm really grappling with. But if we think about it from a secular perspective, and I don't want to say that there's no right or wrong, because there is. It's just more complex than that. And so the invitation, I think, at the end of the day, is to grapple and to question. And to do that in a way that brings meaning, that creates value, that brings forth beauty from inside of us, into our relationships, into our connections, even when we disagree with someone. The right thing is to not make somebody else wrong, and yet there is always a fine line, because certain things are wrong, like racism and misogyny and bigotry and treating others and oppressing others. And yet within all of that, there's a complexity and there's a nuance in how we're having these conversations. Oh my goodness, this is a big one. It's a big one for right now. So I'm leaving us never with an answer, never with, oh, this is it and this is that and that's it. Never with that. Always with an invitation to stay with a question. And that's the thing, interestingly, that the Seder is inviting the practitioners into, to stay with the question. There are questions in the Haggadah that you read in the Seder night. And the invitation is to stay with a question, not to have an answer. That's another thing I talked to my beautiful client yesterday about. It's not about coming out of it with an answer. It's about coming out of it with a question, because we're going into another year and another cycle that's going to lead us to the next Seder. What are the deeds that we're going to pick up along the year throughout that time, all the way to, just like to give you the perspective of the Jewish tradition, all the way to Yom Kippur, when you're supposed to really grapple with your deeds. You weigh your heart at the beginning of every Jewish year. You weigh your deeds and the forgiveness that you're asking for, and the grappling with your, I'm going to put it quote unquote sins, because that's what they call it, but really it's with the deeds, with the feelings, with the experiences that don't sit so well, that on the scales of Ma'at are going to be like not what you're proud of. And sometimes it's not how we act, but it's really the energy that we're sort of moving with, that we feel, I'm just like, why am I like this? Why is this eating me up from inside? And so the invitation is to keep the grapple, and within and through that experience, to do the work and do it in the way of beauty. To not turn toward ourselves with hatred and with self-diminishing and with beating ourselves up for the deeds and feelings that make the heart heavy, but to, through the process of turning toward ourselves and toward each other, and to the scales of Ma'at, to the balancing act of Libra, to do that in a way that creates meaning and brings us deeper into connection and makes beauty. I hope this was interesting for you. There's so much more that we can get into. This was very nutshell-y of a lot of different and pretty big ideas. So I hope this was in somewhat inspiring and evocative and helpful. And if it was, I would really appreciate your like on this video and a subscription to this channel if you're not yet subscribed, and share it with your people. Okay? And let your people go. Just kidding. It's just echoed in my head and came out before I was able to catch it before it came out of my mouth. I'm so grateful. Please subscribe to my Substack. Subscribe to this channel, as I've invited you already. And I'll leave a little link to a musing for you in the description of this video on my website, as well as an invitation to receive my ritual guide, so that perhaps you can create a little ritual for yourself with the help of this guide for this full moon, which by the way you can work with for longer than just today. And that will take you to subscribe to my mailing list, which I send a new moon and a full moon message every full moon and new moon, mostly. Not every, because nothing is ever always, but mostly. Okay, thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you sometime soon. All right, namaste.